and those in need. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Jim. Color Guard Commander, advance the colors.
Right. Halt. Left. Haste.
I ask the Reverend John Mark, Society of Children of the American Revolution, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. It's on the back of your program.
Ready, set, arms.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend Mark, Society. Post the colors.
Order. Arms. Post the colors. Right. Base. Mark time. Mark. Forward. March.
Let's give the Color Guard a round of applause. And I ask Warner Workman to lead us in the SAR Pledge. It's on the back of your program.
We, the descendants of the American Revolution, who by their sacrifices established the United States of America, reaffirm our faith in the principles of liberty and our constitutional republic, and solemnly pledge ourselves to defend them from every foe.
Thank you, compatriot Workman. Please be seated. I invite Virginia Sons of the American Revolution, 3rd Vice President Darren Schmidt, to give remarks and greetings.
I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today to represent President Ernie Coggins and all the members of the Virginia Society Sons of the American Revolution as we commemorate the Declaration of Independence. It's an honor to be here to keep the history alive and to this important document. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. We're honored to have Kelly Burke, Mayor of the town of Leesburg, with us today. Madam Mayor, please come forward and give greetings.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here today with all of you. You are in the best of both worlds because you are on county property. The courthouse is actually owned by the county, so you're on Loudoun County property, but you are in the town of Leesburg. So you're in the best of both worlds. So we are delighted that you're here today, and on behalf of the town council, I want to welcome you. We are always delighted to have these ceremonies here and delighted that you choose to make Leesburg your home when you do these events. So thank you all very much. And in about 4 hours, if you all want to hang around, there'll be about 6,000 people roaming the streets because we have the Taste of Leesburg tonight. And all the vendors and all the restaurants are going to be out serving food, and it'll be a great time. So come back or stay around. But we'd love to see you here tonight.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're honored to have Leesburg District Loudoun County Board of Supervisors Kristen Umstadt with us. Supervisor Umstadt.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the grounds of the Loudoun County Courthouse, a site that has seen many, many great historical events. I just want to thank you all for being here to recognize and celebrate the birth of our nation, a nation I believe will be known through eternity as the best country in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. We have with us today the SR Committee Chair for Virginia DAR, Keisha Brown. Please come forward and give remarks if you wish.
Thank you, and good afternoon. Today, as the Virginia Daughters of the American Revolution extend our warmest greetings to the Sons of the American Revolution on the historic Loudoun County Courthouse grounds, we recognize the enduring spirit that unites us all. Let us ensure that the principles enshrined in the Declaration of Independence remain not just words on a parchment, but living, breathing values that guide our actions, shape our communities, and inspire our nation. It's a moment of reflection, a reminder of the sacrifices made, and the unwavering belief in the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Thank you, Mrs. Brown. Leesburg Town Councilman Todd Semino Johnson. Councilman.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Quite a day, right? It's very hot. So think back to 1776. Wonder how hot it was that day, right? I think history is very important. It tells us who we are, where we came from. And I'm glad to be a part of this program where we are reading for the first time in Virginia the Declaration of Independence and reliving that moment. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Councilman. I invite Holly Lynn Schmidt, Brigade Commander, Descendants of the Army of George Washington at Valley Forge, to give greetings.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to be here to represent the descendants of the George Washington's Great Army at Valley Forge. We are actually working on establishing, as several of you know, our Virginia Brigade. So I'm proud to be that interim brigade commander. And certainly during our run-up to the America 250 celebrations, what a great honor to be here to be able to celebrate that beautiful day. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. And I invite Nancy Hill, Director, Virginia DAR District 5, to give greetings on behalf of her chapter, or district.
I'd like to thank you all for inviting District 5 to this very, very special event. So on behalf of District 5 and the 16 chapters and over 1,700 members, we bring you greetings and are with you today.
Thank you. We will now proceed with the reading of the Declaration of Independence. As I mentioned, we will have several readers. After each person completes their portion, the bell will be rung one time, and at the end, multiple times, and we'll all join in saying that freedom ring. And this will be followed by 3 huzzahs, and I ask compatriot workmen to lead the 3 huzzahs. Our first reader is Leesburg Mayor Kelly Burke.
starts with, in Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them to another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitles them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impede them to this separation.
Thank you. The second reader is Nancy Spanos, author and member of Catoctin Chapter DAR.
Can you hear me? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils sufferable, that to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world.
Thank you. Leesburg Town Councilman Todd Semino Johnson.
He has refused his assent to laws the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of those people.
Thank you. And now we're going to have a little bit of an unusual situation. The Wilson family is going to come forward. First reader will be Jocelyn Wilson, followed by Jodell, and then Michael.
He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers incapable of annihilation have returned to the people at large for their exercise. The state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states for that the purpose of obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries.
He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without consent of our legislatures. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury.
For transporting us beyond the seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English law in a neighboring province, established therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our chapter, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering the fundamentals, the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislators and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has dedicated government here by declaring us out as his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, dissolution, and tyranny, and already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy, scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous age and totally unworthy the head of a civilization nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioner of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections among us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions.
Thank you, Wilson family. Keisha Brown, DAR, SAR, SR Liaison Committee Chair, Virginia, NSDAR.
In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for a redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation, and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends.
Ed Spanos, past president, Lawrence Everhart Chapter, Maryland, SAR.
We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortune, and our sacred honor.
Thank you, Ed. Kristen Noomstadt, Leesburg District County Board of Supervisors.
So what happened next? The Declaration of Independence was approved by the Second Continental Congress on July 4th, 1776, but it was not signed until almost a month later. The Congress did not have the approval of all 13 colonies until July 9th, 1776. On July 19th, Congress ordered that an official copy of the document be created. The order called for handwritten, ornamental script to be used on parchment paper with the title, "The Unanimous Declaration of the 13 United States of America." Using a quill pen, this took some time to finish. The actual signing finally took place on August 2nd, 1776. As president of the Second Continental Congress, John Hancock was the first to sign this historic document. He used large, bold script and signed under the text in the center of the page. At that time, a general practice was to sign below text on the right and by geographic location. Using this protocol, signatures of the New Hampshire delegates began the list with the column on the right. Delegates from Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina, the southernmost states, ended the list with the column on the left. Some of the delegates were not in Philadelphia on that day, but signed the document later. One of the New Hampshire delegates, Matthew Thornton, added his signature later at the bottom of the right column. Not all delegates signed the document. The signers of the Declaration of Independence included future presidents, vice presidents, and members of the United States Congress. Below are the names of the men who signed the Declaration of Independence and the states that they represented.
Thank you. McPherson Strasburg, President, Reverend John Mark Society, Children of the American Revolution.
From Georgia, Button Gwinnett, Lyman Hall, George Walton. From North Carolina, William Hooper, Joseph Hughes, and John Penn. From South Carolina, Edward Rutledge, Thomas Hayward Jr., Thomas Lynch Jr., and Arthur Middleton. And from Maryland, Samuel Chase, William Paca, Thomas Stone, and Charles Carroll of Carrollton.
Thank you. Warner Workman, Sergeant Major John Champe.
Virginia, George Wythe, Richard Henry Lee, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Harrison, Thomas Nelson Jr., Francis Lightfoot Lee, Carter Braxton. From Pennsylvania, Robert Morris, Benjamin Rush, Benjamin Franklin, John Morton, George Clymer, James Smith, George Taylor, James Wilson, George Ross. And from Delaware, Caesar Rodney, George Reed, and Thomas McKeon.
Mark Sink, Sergeant Major John Champe, Chapter.
From New York, William Floyd. Philip Livingston, Francis Lewis, Lewis Morris. From New Jersey, Richard Stockton, John Witherspoon, Francis Hopkinson, John Hart, Abraham Clark. From New Hampshire, Joshua Bartlett, William Whipple. From Massachusetts, Samuel Adams, John Adams, John Hancock, Robert Treat Payne, Eldridge Jerry. From Rhode Island, Stephen Hopkins, William Ellerly. From Connecticut, Roger Sherman, Samuel Huntington, William Williams, and Oliver Wolcott. From New Hampshire, Matthew Thornton.
Join me, please. Let freedom ring. Let freedom ring.
Are you ready? Huzzah!
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 Huzzah! Thank you. The question is, what happened to the signers of the Declaration of Independence, and what kind of men were these folks? Well, 24 were lawyers and judges, 11 were merchants, 9 were farmers and large plantation owners. They were men of means and generally well educated. They were not wild-eyed, rabble-rousing ruffians. They were soft-spoken men of means and education who deliberated many long hours with well-thought-out arguments on what the colonies should do. They all had security, but they valued liberty more. And what happened to them? A few were captured by the British. Many had their homes ransacked and burned. Some lost sons serving in the Revolution. Some had sons captured. Several fought and died from wounds or hardships of war. Many lost everything they had, including their families and property. When they signed the Declaration, they pledged For the support of this declaration, with firm reliance on the protection of the divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. They all upheld that pledge, and several gave their lives and fortunes. None gave up their sacred honor, and they did it so we could have the country we have today. We're going to proceed to the wreath presentations. We present wreaths as a means of each organization to honor the Declaration of Independence, the drafters, and the signers. Representing the Virginia Sons of the American Revolution, Darren Schmidt, third Vice President. Representing Virginia Sons of the American, Sergeant Major John Champe, Chapter, Virginia SAR, compatriot Mark Sink. Representing the Colonel William Grayson, Chapter, Virginia SAR, President Michael Wilson. Representing the Colonel James Wood II, Chapter, Virginia SAR, Vice President Paul Christensen. Representing the Sergeant Lawrence Everhart, Chapter, Maryland SAR, past President Ed Spanos. Representing Virginia, the Colonel Fielding Lewis, Chapter, Virginia SAR, Steve Bolton, member. Representing Virginia DAR, Keisha Brown, DAR, SAR, SR Liaison Committee Chair. Representing the Elizabeth McIntosh Hamill Chapter, DAR, Paula Schwer, member. And representing the Catoctin Chapter, DAR, former President Nancy Watford. Former Regent, excuse me. Is Suzanne Whedon here? Representing the Lanes Mill Chapter, DAR, Valerie Sink, past Regent. Representing the Mary Hemmings Bell Chapter, DAR, Ann Ballinger, Regent. Representing the descendants of 1776, Washington, D.C., DAR, Cynthia Strasberg, member. Representing the descendants of the Army of George Washington at Valley Forge, Holly Lynn Schmidt, Brigade Commander. Representing the Providence Society of Children of the American Revolution, Jocelyn Wilson. Representing the Reverend John Mark Society of Children of the American Revolution, Wendery Frederick, Senior President, McPherson Strasburg, President, and members. Thank you, wreath presenters. Could you all stay in position just a second while we grab a picture? Okay, thank you. You can return to your shade spots if you wish. I ask compatriot Rec Wade to lead us in the SAR recessional. It's on the back of your program.
Until we meet again, let us remember our obligation to our forefathers who gave us our Constitution, the Bill of Rights, an independent Supreme Court, and a nation of free men.
I ask Chaplain Jim Watts to bring us the benediction.
May God bless and keep you. May the Lord grant us nobility of character and compassion for the needy, and bind us in fraternal love until we meet again. Amen.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you all for coming today. It was hot. It was a challenge getting out here, particularly with the parking in downtown Leesburg. But before you leave, please join us for pictures here at the Spirit of Loudon, and drive carefully on the way home as you depart. Just as a reminder, you heard the mayor talk about the Taste of Loudon. It starts at 5 p.m., lasts until 10. There'll be 30 eateries, 13 breweries, 10 wineries, and entertainment in 3 locations: the Courthouse Lawn, North King Street, the intersection of King and Market. Thanks again for coming, and please join us up here for pictures.